I think Silent Hill, the game, is a good game because I saw the movie once and it had Pyramid Head. And he ripped off some lady's skin that Pyramid Head was in this game too, and so it made me happy, right? Yeah.
No way. Homecoming doesn't offer anything. There's no coherent story, engaging narrative, affecting atmosphere, good gameplay, or sense of world. It's just a lot of funny faces and really amusing glitches, and incredibly bad plot twists, and really silly puzzles. It's just time you pissed away. I'd rather take a nap or stare at a wall.
I do believe Silent Hill Homecoming is a good game, but kind of in its own little weird world. As an actual Silent Hill game, I think it was a little awkward and unnecessary, but I don't think if it actually had the Silent Hill title to it, I wouldn't be holding it up to such harsh standards. It tried to fix a combat system that I've heard many people complain about, real tankish, little clunky. They actually tried to fix it, and I applaud them for that. Story was still good. Sure, the plot twist from Silent Hill 2 was really applied here, but I still think it had actually a little original story. It's not Game of the Year by any means, but it's an average game. I enjoyed it.
It really reminded me of the first fighting game boom back in the 90s, where there was companies producing, these quick games like Way of the Warrior and Kasumi Ninja and Bloodstorm. And it was obvious that the people behind these games had played fighting games before. They'd played Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, but they didn't really understand what made them good. They just had a cast of characters that punched each other in the face, and when one of the characters won, occasionally you got to do a fatality. They didn't really bother with any of the deeper or more complex elements that gave Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat their legs, and as a result, their games suffered for it. And even though it's a completely different genre, that's the same mistake that Double Helix made with Silent Hill Homecoming, and their game definitely suffered because of it as well.
I think it is a decent game, but it has a lot of problems. Like, it wasn't fully polished. Couldn't even invert my axis on my y-axis, which is one of the most annoying things ever, since you have to switch over to shoot. So the camera and the shooting was all fucked up because of that. But I think overall it's a decent game. It has a lot of flaws, like copying Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 1 story aspects and trying to pretend it's deep, but it's really not.
I cannot in good heart say that Silent Hill Homecoming is actually a good game. I mean, I guess the combat's alright, the level design is okay, and the story is interesting if you don't look at it too hard, but it's so repetitive and boring. The monsters look stupid, and it's just so incredibly glitchy. It feels like they didn't take the time to optimize the game at all.
I really do think Homecoming had the potential to be a good game. The problem would be that under Silent Hill and with fans think of Silent Hill, they have this certain expectation since the game's already made a name for itself in the whole survival horror industry.
They just basically, it seemed like a fan game for the fucking film. It served no purpose, the story was fucking stupid, the characters can go fuck themselves, as far as I'm concerned, and the combat, it's never been the focus of a Silent Hill game.
Besides the glitches and everything, the story was like a copy and pasted from like Silent Hill 2. Like, I remember hearing that there was an interview with Double Helix saying that their favorite was Silent Hill 2 and they wanted to go back to that roots. So seeing that interview and I was playing through that game, I was already guessing that, maybe the brother was going to die or he's repressing the memory of someone that he killed. And sure enough, at the end of the game, that's what it was. So I felt like the story was way too predictable, too, as well. Like, I was playing it again the other day and, like, I was actually falling asleep while playing the game because I was just not that interested into it. And, like, it's more like an okay game.
I think it has all the good qualities of being a decent game, but it just didn't turn out that way because they tried to include things that really were just bloating the game.
It's very difficult for me to find much to love about this game. The writing is bad, it has terrible and patronizing puzzles, the characters are mostly dull, it's not even very scary.
That's kind of like asking if Resident Evil 5 is a good game. You're going to have fans divided on the matter. As for me personally, I think it's about average. I didn't hate its story per se. What I found compelling is that I'm not at the current state I'm in, I'm not a husband who lost a wife. So I couldn't relate to James in any way. However, I am an older brother, and I do have a younger brother who I look after. And so, with Alex in Silent Hill Homecoming, I could compare with him a lot more. And I think a lot of people who are brothers, and especially have that sibling conflict from time to time, trying to be the favorite, or just warming up to their parents. Maybe their parents didn't have a bond with them like they did with the other sibling. That can come into play a lot. So there is that family connection that you can relate to some of these characters.
If you haven't played a Silent Hill game before, then you could probably play through and enjoy it. If you have experience with the previous games, at least Silent Hill 1, then you'll probably pick up on stuff that rips off. And I don't think you'll enjoy it as much.
The game, for me, worked because I was looking forward more to the next monsters or the next different otherworld transition, rather than I was looking forward to where the story was going, although that was an amusing distraction, to say the least.
I believe Homecoming is a bad game in the sense that the characters are stupid, the plot devices are silly, and the story makes no sense. However, this is also why I enjoyed it. It's sort of like The Room or the Resident Evil movies. It's trying so hard to be serious business and failing at it that it becomes something else entirely.
It tried very hard to be many things that it wasn't, and it failed in all of those regards. If it was trying to be a Silent Hill game, it failed at being scary. If it was trying to be a suspenseful game, it failed at being suspenseful. If it was trying to be an action game, it failed at being an action game because it's full of bugs and other crap. So no, I definitely do not feel that Homecoming is a good game.
Is it a good game? Yes. Because it doesn't not work? Question 2. Rank Silent Hill among other games. Among other Silent Hill games, if I played them. I didn't play them, so I don't know. Let's see. Let's rank it against Arkham City. Arkham City is much better.
Well, Silent Hill Homecoming is definitely not the worst game of all time as compared to other games. I think that crown goes to Cyberdillo for the 3DO, which is a game that's so utterly buckshit insane. It's just baffling that a team of people made it. I don't know. Maybe you had to drink bleach in order to get hired to that development team. I'd certainly rate it beneath games that are flawed but have enough good points to make you want to play it when it comes down in price, like, I don't know, Alpha Protocol or Sin Episode 1. It's just bad. You can't even really play it for the perverse fun of seeing how bad it gets, because you just get frustrated. It's not like the video game equivalent of Battlefield Earth or The Room. It's the video game equivalent of Wind Talkers, I guess. I hated that movie. Maybe you liked it. I don't know.
Compared with all of the other Silent Hills, I would say that it is definitely the worst. Actually, I haven't played the arcade, so that's unfair. It might be better than the arcade. And it's a shame because despite what some of the louder Silent Hill fans might suggest, Americans can do horror. But this game is simply the stereotype of bad American horror. It's more like action romance with some blood and monsters than real horror.
It's really low on both scales, as it's kind of a void of a game, no matter how much you try to engage it by exploring stages, chewing over monster design, or figuring out the most effective way to kill shit. All you really get back is a sense of mediocrity, which is really depressing. I mean, Homecoming is giving you a world in which fears, death, and sin are made physical, and to feel nothing in the face of that just gives the whole thing a feel of miscommunication. Basically, playing, watching, and talking about Homecoming respectively feels like being stuck on a bus between a deaf person who won't stop talking about their dead dog and a crying harlequin baby, listening to a drunken motivational speaker in elementary school, and drinking a case of warm Keystone so slowly you never get drunk, just a hangover.
I would range it, I would put it in the same category that I put Don't Shit Your Pants in.
It doesn't really rank, now does it? Even among the Silent Hill titles. I only really played one, but I've seen how the others go, and this doesn't even compare. It's so much worse.
Apparently, he got killed in a bathtub at the start of the game. I mean, it's just, you can't beat that shit, really. I mean, you just cannot beat quality quality writing like that. So actually, I think, in my expert opinion, it comes right up top.
Definitely on the bottom of the list. Homecoming is not the best Silent Hill game at all, but like I said, it's not an abomination. It's not a travesty that pisses me off every day. It's had a lot of problems, but it doesn't upset me that much.
This game retroactively makes the entire series seem to suck more. That's an achievement I've seen few games not named Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 pull off.
If I were to compare Homecoming to other games, I'd say that it's equivalent to so much shovelware that has come out in recent years. Limbo thematically makes a better Silent Hill experience, and that's a 2D platformer. My experience is limited, having only played 1, 2, 3, Homecoming, and Shattered Memories. Regardless of that, Homecoming is still at the bottom of the list, considering that it's the only game in the series that I quit midway. It was at the church.
Well, I would say this game is definitely like Game of the Year 2008, at least, because I played the other Silent Hill games before, and you couldn't even like strafe, and when you use weapons, you're really slow, and you couldn't like dodge out of the way or jump or anything. And I was like, what? How am I going to kill monsters like this? So I just played Homecoming against that because it was better, right?
I think I would rank Homecoming as probably one of the worst games I've ever seen at any point in my life. It is clearly an unfinished product that is filled with bugs, most of which cause you to be unable to, play the game or complete the game in the case of certain puzzles.
Among the Silent Hill ones, I'd say that Homecoming is the second worst, with Shattered Memories being the absolute nadir of the series.
I'd rank it among Geist and things of that nature as not really good games, just fun to play and just entertaining.
Not very well, really. I mean, there are much better horror games I could be playing and much better action games I could be playing. But on the other hand, there are much worse games I could be playing.
I think I would rate Silent Hill Homecoming on the same level as Shattered Memories, because it's about as boring. The story makes about as much sense, and it ruins the Silent Hill. It ruined Silent Hill for most people, I think, just as much as Homecoming did.
I'd rate it fairly low in the list of all the Silent Hill games I've played, which are 2 through 4 and then Shattered Memories. However, just because I rate it quite low doesn't mean it's a bad game, because I actually rate the Silent Hills quite highly, all of them, and especially Shattered Memories. I don't get why people shat on that game so much. It was enjoyable, unique. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I enjoyed the hell out of Homecoming too, but for a completely different reason.
My least favorite character in Homecoming, there are so many of them that are just terrible, but I think I'm going to say Josh. I think I'm going to say Josh is my least favorite character, and he's my least favorite character because he reminds me that all he is Mary from Silent Hill 2. That's it. That's all he's there for. He's there to just be a plot point, and he serves no purpose other than that.
My favourite character is probably Alex's father. I think that he's got a lot more depth than most of the characters. It's his fault that Shepard's Glen goes to hell, and I actually think the game could have been more interesting if we'd played as him instead. Elle was probably my least favourite character. I never cared for her. I never cared for the romantic subplot. Well, I hated the romantic subplot. It was so cringeworthy and forced. And also, Elle barely has a character. She finds out that her mother is evil and behind the death of her own sister, and all we ever hear from her about it is, "Oh God, I can't believe this." I just don't know why she's even in the game.
My favourite's probably going to be the same as everyone else. It'll be Wheeler, mainly based on the fact that he's not a massive cock like everyone else. Least favourite would be Alex. He's at the centre of everything. He's the person you have to endure for the most amount of time. He's thick as pig shit, and he's a cunt.
My favorite character was Alex because he was very intelligent and charming, and I thought he was pretty smart. And he was just a pleasure to play as. He was very powerful against the enemies. And then my least favorite character was Alex's dad because he was going to drown Alex in the bathtub, and that made him a bad guy. I didn't like that.
Question 3 is Wheeler, because he's the only character I can remember.
I didn't have a favourite character in Homecoming because all the characters were absolutely rubbish. Even Wheeler, who everyone seems to think is a great character, was pretty rubbish. He had a shotgun. That was kind of cool. That was about it.
My favorite character in the game is Doc Fitch. His part of the game accurately reflects what happened and what's become of him, and utilizes symbolism rather well on the dead-end exit signs and such, but for this reason he's also my least favorite. It irks me that such potential was wasted on a secondary character when we have a perfectly flawed and exploitable protagonist to work with. There's so much that I'd wish they'd done with Alex, and a lot of it is expressed in an entirely different character's area.
My favorite character in Homecoming was definitely Wheeler. I mean, he was the character I could most relate to. He didn't have some guilt or psychological trauma or any of that to him. He was just a guy, caught up in some crazy cult shit, didn't know what the fuck, and just rolled with it. My least favorite character would be Josh. I mean, for being the MacGuffin of the plot, he's such a non-entity in the actual story that it makes me wonder why I should even care about the little brat.
My least favorite character has to be either Curtis or Judge Holloway. There's just something about them that I'm just like, these guys are just idiots. Like, Judge Holloway seems more like a Bond villain. Like, she's just like, here, let me just explain to you my entire plan and everything.
Not a single character stood out for me when I played the game, or watched the LP later. But I guess my favorite was Alex's mom because she was supposed to be lifeless and stiff as a board as opposed to everyone else.
Actually, Alex is my favorite, as he gave you the most to think over. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to ever come up with plausible explanations for all of his actions, but since it's a Silent Hill game, I keep thinking about just try hard enough or I eventually get somewhere. Sure, it's the mental equivalent of running in circles, I guess, but it's better than the overwhelming nothing the game usually presents you with. My least favorite's gotta be Josh. All of his scenes just drag attention to how bad the writing is. I mean, how is it even possible to show a 9-year-old drowning and have that be unemotional?
When it came to a favorite character in the game, I think I would go with Adam Shepard. Just because his choice of having to sacrifice one of his 2 sons was just one decision I don't think any parent should ever have to go through, and has to live by it. You know, he isn't picking a kid and killing him right then and there. No, he has to live through and see this kid grow up and mature and do all these things that a parent's supposed to take pride in, but deep down know that he's going to have to eventually drown him.
Far and away my favorite character in Homecoming was Deputy Wheeler, and only a small part of that is the fact that he reminded me of Clay Davis from The Wire whenever he said, shit! As an NPC, he wasn't useless, and in fact he was the opposite of useless. He kicked enemies' asses if you let him. And beyond that, he just felt like the most natural character in the story. You know, a guy that didn't know what was going on, but was going to find out, who had courage, but also a healthy fear of the unknown. And that was basically the one stroke of good writing in the story was Wheeler's reactions to everything. He knew he was dealing with some crazy bullshit and reacted accordingly, but at the same time, he was going to get to the bottom of what was going on. And that made him so much more likable than the rest of the cast. I wish Wheeler was the protagonist, which dovetails with who I thought was the worst character in the game, which was Alex Shepard. Because, oh my god, what a fucking worthless protagonist. This fucker's just dumber than a bag of hammers. He's a really stupid version of James Sunderland from Silent Hill 2, which is, you know, exactly what he is, follows the same story arc. But whereas you felt sympathy for James because he felt really, really guilty over euthanizing his wife, it turns out that Alex is just an irresponsible dipshit that killed his brother accidentally by doing something incredibly stupid for a reason that's never really properly explained. Actually, not at all explained. And it's like, if you were a talented writer, one that didn't write Sci-Fi Channel original movies, you could probably make Alex an interesting or sympathetic character. But it was just beyond the writing ability of these clowns, and so he's one of the most fucking worthless characters of all time that didn't appear in a Sonic the Hedgehog game.
Well, I wasn't really, to be truth be told, I wasn't paying much attention in during the LP. There's that guy, wasn't it? And he was like, you know, he's a bit of a dick, wasn't he? How was it?
My least favorite is everything after the sewers, and also the sewers.
My favorite moment of Homecoming is at the very beginning when we see Travis driving the truck. I like this moment because as soon as you see Travis, you know exactly what this game will be. And any expectations you may have had were broken in under 10 minutes of playing the game.
My favorite moment isn't so much a single moment, as it is a collection of every moment where the game bugs out in a spectacular and usually fatal manner. From the world becoming a grey abyss, to the puzzles failing to complete themselves, invincible bosses, monsters on top of each other, saves devouring themselves to stop you from playing such a horrible game. It's just... the game itself doesn't want it to be played.
My favorite moment was when Alex drowned Josh because that kid was a loser. And my least favorite was when you had to do the puzzles because they're difficult, and I'd rather just fight monsters.
My favorite moment in Homecoming is kind of odd, as it's actually a fairly out-of-place moment considering the series. I actually like the police station segment, just the hectic efforts you're doing to escape the police station with all the schisms chasing and attacking you. I like that for some reason, which is odd because it's a Silent Hill game and this really shouldn't be there, but I guess since I'm not enjoying it as I would other Silent Hill games, anything that's mildly fun is welcome at that point.
That's my favorite scene because it's like Wheeler's like, oh my god, what's going on? And he's like, boom, and Harry's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump into a sewer, and then that goes well. I have no real idea what she's doing there. I sort of forgot about her.
Least favorite. Moving around in Shepherd's Glen and Silent Hill, getting from point to point, pretty much getting to the boss battles, really. Everything in between is just, it's boring and bland, and it's just, ugh.
I enjoyed Homecoming's bosses quite a lot, at a conceptual level and in the way they were implemented. Conceptual because they were new. They were one of the new things that Double Helix added in, one of the few things. Instead of being conjurings from the mind of the protagonist, they were the sacrificed children of Shepherd's Glen, and that was cool, and it was macabre, and I think it was even a little bit creepy, one of the creepier things in the game. As for least favorite part of Homecoming, it's the escort quest with Al. What the fuck were they thinking?
The descent into hell from in what's Doc Finch's office, that was actually really quite cool. Very good very good art direction with it, but a little bit of a shitty maze with way too many fans. Least favourite, though, would be a great proportion of the game, to be perfectly fair, but I'm going to go with a safe bet and say the fucking sewer level, because seriously, what the fuck? Sewer levels are supposed to be bad, they're always bad, but yeah, that's seriously even worse than Vampire Bloodlines.
The puzzle with the rotating bits, where I believe the answers are a coffin and a chess piece and nothing, and you have to stick your arm in it. It's bizarre. It uses a couple of easy riddles. It fits in really nicely with the Silent Hill 3 puzzles, which were my favorites in the series. Those puzzles in Silent Hill 3 really made you think. I would have enjoyed if the puzzles in this game were harder, but that puzzle alone stands out to me as a good example of a good puzzle.
Sure, I have some favorite moments in Homecoming. Any of the time that you spend with Wheeler were good moments in Homecoming, because he's actually a decent character, even if he's, incredibly racist. Therefore, my least favorite moments would be the time that you don't spend with Wheeler, which is the rest of the game.
I like the opening hospital bit, where you wander around the hospital and when it changes into the other world, and that was one of the things I think they did really quite well. Just the whole transition from the fog world to the other world, even if it was stolen from the really, really bad movie.
My favorite scene is actually the missing person scene, as even though Els and Alex's interactions are really stilted, usually Silent Hill games have a sort of post-apocalyptic feel to them, so the change of pace is interesting, even if it's never ever expanded upon. Least favorite's gotta be the boat scene. It's the epitome of Uncanny Valley writing.
The boss fight with Scarlet would probably be my favorite boss fight, too, because Scarlet was just a force that as far as the game was concerned, I just completely enjoyed and was scared mindlessly over, with the way the room was lit up and how that creature attacked and how you had to literally rip and tear off sections of it, and it was brutal.
My favourite moments of Homecoming, I absolutely loved the Hell Descent, going down towards Scarlet, and I loved Scarlet. They were my two best bits of the game by far. I also quite liked... Nah, I didn't quite like that. I'm talking crap. Sorry, I was going to say I quite liked the house section. The house section was not good at all. But yeah, I liked the Hell Descent, and I especially liked the moment where you're walking down the stairs and you expect to walk around the corner and you'd be like, ooh, he's disappeared. Where could he have possibly gone? And instead you walk around there and there's a smog right in your face. That scared the bejesus out of me both times I played through the game. And so that is one of my personal, very little highlights, but certainly one of my highlights.
I think the best moments in the game are definitely the forgiveness scenes for Alex's mother and father. They give a lot more depth into the characters, and, well, it puts you kind of in the seat of what would you do in that scenario if your parents had done this to you? How would you react? How would you respond to them?
Least favorite, I would have to say a couple of the levels, the sewer level. Sewer level, I think. Yeah, pretty much the sewer level is really ass.
My favorite moment was the opening cutscene with Alex on the gurney, because it was honestly one of the few legitimately creepy moments in the game. But I absolutely hated the drill scene at the end, mainly because I am so squeamish about that kind of shit.
My favorite part of Homecoming was probably the flavor text in Alex's house that made it bleeding obvious that his own family hates him. My least favorite part is thinking back on how I voluntarily paid $60 for it.
My favorite... My least favorite would be everything?
Does kind of. I mean, the basic principles of it, the families, they need to sacrifice stuff, they cocked up the sacrifice. As for, existing in a normal timeline that you can actually follow and being written by someone that wasn't a ham-handed twat, no, you can't really follow it. It's full of fucking plot holes. It's the kind of thing Tim Buckley would fucking write.
People all think, oh man, it's complete it doesn't make sense, it wasn't written properly, but no, it was actually, you see, it wasn't about the cult or the other cults, or Silent Hill, or Alex, or a bathtub, or Pyramid Head, or Wheeler, or the monsters, or that giant doll thing. It was actually all about locked doors. Because the thing is, it's like, locked doors, a door is a door, but a locked door is a missed opportunity. It's saying something, it tells you something about the fundamental human nature.
The plot made complete sense to me, but only because of the scene where Judge Holloway explained the entire plot. I'm really glad they did that, though, or we would have had to try and work it out, or maybe have to think about it. But I like not having to do that kind of thing, because I've also had it drilled through my brain.
Well, it makes perfect sense. Doesn't mean it's not completely retarded.
There's just so many things. Why, if you're going to sacrifice a son, why would you choose the older one and treat him like shit for a much longer period of time when you've got a younger son, that you haven't known for as long and therefore probably wouldn't have gotten as attached to? Why did Alex take Josh out on the boat? Why did Josh act like a 4-year-old when he would look to be like 12? None of this made sense to me.
Well, Alex kills his brother, Dad flips shit, doesn't kill Alex, and the town goes to hell. It makes sense.
My first ending that I unlocked was the mental hospital ending. And I felt kind of cheated in that regard, because it felt like, well, it was all in his head, and everything I did was for nothing.
I understand what happened, but not why. People in this game generally have the logical plot devices, not humans, so it just seems silly.
It makes sense up to a point, and then it doesn't anymore. Because if Alex isn't really a member of the Armed Service Division, how does he know how to fight? I don't think that's possible. And there's no logic. How did he even get out? Did he break out? Did he, get released? Who the fuck knows?
No, it doesn't make sense. There's no reason why the Shepard family couldn't kill Alex after Josh died. And if there is a reason, then it's never explained in the game. Let's just assume that for some reason they can't kill Alex and set everything right. Look at the end of the game. Alex kills some weird prego spider lady, Josh's dead body falls out, and Alex says goodbye. What the fuck does that mean? How does that fix anything? Are monsters suddenly going to go away now?
Homecoming's plot has the same problem as Origins, where Alex has no clear motivation for doing what he does. Throughout the game, I never have a clear idea about why he's so worried about Josh. The events of the plot have no cohesion. It feels more like a carnival ride than an actual story.
No, it does not make sense to me in the fucking slightest. I know what they were trying to do, because they were obviously ripping off the Silent Hill 2. With the whole, you're chasing after someone, but guess what? They're actually dead.
Yes, it does make sense because they wanted to escape the sacrificial cult in Silent Hill, right? By going across the lake, but they were afraid the cult would follow them, so they made up a crazy sacrificial cult to defend themselves with. And that's what I would do.
Yes, they fucking do. I played through Silent Hill Homecoming once, didn't look up any guides or anything like that, so I knew there'd be multiple endings, but yeah. So played through it once, got the UFO ending, had no fucking desire to go back and play through the entire game again. The developers are clueless twats. They really are. I mean, why the fuck would you put the UFO ending as a possible ending on your first ever fucking playthrough? I mean, forget any kind of closure to the fucking story. No, you get a fucking UFO.
It almost feels like they changed the game so much at the last minute that they now couldn't do a good ending, so they just created some generic endings which they knew would fit with whatever story they actually ended up putting out there, regardless of what actually happened in the plot. So all the endings feel completely detached to anything that happened in the entire game.
I think the biggest problem with the endings is they just don't have any connection to your choices. It's already simplifying what Silent Hill games did to make the outcome affected by a couple of binary choices, but the decisions seem to be entirely unrelated to the ending. The part where Lillian is killed, for instance, if I don't euthanize her, the game decides to give me a worse ending for Alex. I wasn't sure which one to do at the time, so I decided not to shoot her because I decided Alex wouldn't want to shoot his mum. It didn't seem clear to me what the moral thing to do in that situation was, because for all I knew, I might have been able to rescue Lillian. So from that, the game extrapolates either that Alex should be in a mental hospital or he escapes with his loved one. It doesn't actually make any sense.
Homecoming, it tries to be, well, confusing, like making you think it's all a dream in some endings, and well, they did this in Silent Hill, that was one ending. This game has multiple endings where it sort of hints that it's all a dream, and that's kind of lame, really.
I think that all the endings could have used a little bit more than 20 seconds to be given to the reader, the player, whatever.
Well, on my first playthrough, I got the UFO ending. Did it leave something to be desired? I kind of desired an actual ending. Maybe some kind of resolution. The other endings feel like cool ideas instead of actual endings, and it feels like they're only there because they felt that a Silent Hill game should have multiple endings, despite the fact that this game didn't really require it.
Okay, here's the thing about endings. They require a conclusion. Conclusions don't happen in Homecoming because, well, there's no real ending. They either say none of it really happened, it was a dream, or they trail off without actual, closure?
I mean, the only one that actually made sense was the intensive care one. But it felt like a cheap ending, because it was just the whole, oh, you were just asleep all along.
The story of Homecoming doesn't end, it just stops. I mean, aside from a lot of bullshit in the bad endings that don't really make a whole lot of sense, and they follow the cop out of, it was all a dream! I mean, they weren't really endings. They were just there.
One was just like a boring, generic, oh, we made it end. And the other was like a UFO ending. It didn't even try to be funny. Just, hey, there are UFO endings in Silent Hill. We should do that.
None of Homecoming's endings bring any semblance of closure or understanding to the story it's supposed to be tying up. But I really had, if I really had to pick one, I think I'd go with Boogeyman, just because they don't even try to hide the fan service.
Do you think they left some? No, I thought they were good. I thought the ending with Alex turning into Pyramid Head was the best one because it had Pyramid Head. And then Alex was a Pyramid Head too, and that was great. And the other endings were alright, I guess. They could have used more monsters. Maybe Pyramid Head or something. I think if this game had Pyramid Head as a boss battle, it would have been better because everybody, that's what we're here for, right? We want to fight Pyramid Head. He's the Silent Hill bad guy. But I don't know, it was pretty good anyways.
Definitely spend some time to look at the bugs in this game and be like, well, I mean, our game's not finished yet. There's obviously a lot of crashes, there's a lot of glitches, and I mean, we gotta fix these, and that's what I hope they do. A lot of people are upset that Downpour got delayed, and I'm like, well, if they spend that time looking for any of those bugs and glitches and deal with them properly, I can't be upset at a delay. I'd rather have a game that came out late but worked than a game that came out like rushed and just unfinished and unprepared. And in Homecoming's case, that's what I felt happened.
I think Climax should have done it. I mean, they just finished Origins. Why not let them do it again? Let them make a game on a more powerful console than the PS2 and PSP.
I do think that Double Helix had a lot of components that they needed to make a good game. They were just missing a lot of crucial ones. First and foremost being it needed to have a good story, a good original story. And, as I said before, instead it had a bad rehash of a pre-existing Silent Hill story. If they had good writers, not sci-fi original movie writers, write a script that was original and had good characters and good dialogue, and a character that wasn't a fucking asshole idiot, then it would be a flawed game that was nonetheless worth playing. It would be an Alpha Protocol or a Sin Episode 1.
I think the one major thing that Homecoming could have done to make it a better game is to not have been a shitty version of Silent Hill 2. They needed to come up with an actual original plot for the game that actually made some sense. They needed to write it out, have people review it, and say, yes, this makes sense, rather than just throw a bunch of shit together and say, well, let's see what sticks and see if it works out.
Give more to the endings. Just please spend more time on the endings. I mean, we're playing this game for how long? We want a good payoff. We don't want a 30-second ending that really doesn't give us much. I kind of want something that explains a little bit more, or just gives me something.
Make the combat less repetitive.
You know what they could have done? They could have made a not Silent Hill game, because it's essentially that.
Homecoming could have been a better game if they focused more on the scariness. These games are supposed to be horror games, but there's no horror in this game. There's nothing in this game. You go from point A to point B, fight monsters along the way, grab MacGuffin A, take it to place B, completely do this over and over again. A lot of the times we have the barest idea of what we're supposed to be doing in any given place.
One of my biggest problems with the game was that it was too combat orientated, but an even bigger problem was that the combat was bad. I'd be more willing to accept that the game had gone in a different direction if they had actually done a good job of going in that direction.
Give it to another development team, to be perfectly frank. They didn't really know what they were doing, or at least didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They spoke big about making a different game, kind of changing things up, not giving people the same game as the previous games, but they completely fucking failed. They did give a game that was like the previous ones, but I mean, all that changed was the combat was a little bit better, which, fair enough, is a bit more manageable, but that's never really been the point. And the plot and the writing and everything was just so much fucking worse than the previous ones, and the original games aren't fucking Shakespeare. So, well done to them for managing to fuck that one up.
I feel like they could have done something with the soldier story. Like, they could have really done something with, like, a war-type story. But then at the end of the game, when it was just like, oh, he was just in the hospital for all that time, I was really disappointed in that.
If Homecoming didn't try so hard to be Silent Hill 2 the movie, and was able to develop its own identity, even if that meant shedding the Silent Hill name altogether, it might have been received a little bit better.
Who are you?